Okay, so I'm a drummer, and as I get older, my desire to make my own drums only grows stronger. And there's a lot of influences both within drum making, drums in general, and also just like life in general and art in general, that are influencing sort of what the hypothetical design process would be, or the whatever philosophy I would have when it comes to making my own product. Whether that's listening to, there's a guy, Greasy Will, who's a pretty successful sound engineer. Whether it's the experience that I have working at Taylor Guitars, working in their finish department, whether that's just the general woodworking knowledge I've experienced at Taylor Guitars, at the cabinet shop that I worked, where I also sprayed finish, all that stuff, and listening to voices of luthiers and drum makers, and understanding myself as a drummer and the sounds that I appreciate out of drums, and how we acquire them. And so while everyone always gets enthralled in the idea of perfection, and how is typically defined quality is typically defined by the most expensive products, the most the most structurally sturdy things, or the most resonant tone wood. um I'm kind of thinking more so about the experiences I've had with drums, being, I have a really nice expensive Bell Bronze snare drum, which is like, top of the top. I was obsessed back in the day when I was first getting into, my passion for the gear I was using, being obsessed with DW and their quality standards, and John Good of DW being the Wood Whisperer, and later, eventually finding Sonar and being like, well, they're also, DW, and don't, Sonar, they got to be the best of the best. But nowadays, with my fascination for vintage drums, and the imperfections that lie within everything, I'm looking more so at my busted up, Slingerland Gene Cupra snare, or my $110 Kent single tension snare drum, or aesthetically all the fancy types of woods, like cool looking types of exotic woods that I've had the honor of both working with personally and working with professionally. No, I like nowadays I'm looking at like my busted up, 1970s Slingerland, snare drum, or my 1960s Kent, $110 snare drum, and the weird quirks and hardware and features that it's like, where can I go? And the fancy types, the cool types of wood that I've seen in my life, and it's like, what can I do with this stuff?